The blanket was still warm, but the house was silent. Not the silence of a lazy morning, not the hush before coffee. This silence had weight, like something had gone missing. The thermostat was set to 68, but the air felt colder. The back door unlocked, the second mug in the sink still dripping. People think betrayal arrives like glass shattering, loud, violent, obvious. But sometimes it slips in wearing socks. Quiet, soft-footed, already knowing the way. I didn't cry, not at first. I just stood there, holding the warmth she left behind. There's no guidebook for moments like this. When someone you trust doesn't knock, they use the key you gave them and take what you never thought you had to protect. If no one ever warned you that betrayal wears perfume, stay with me. Because sometimes the person who breaks you used to braid your hair. When Carol called, I didn't ask questions. Her voice trembled, and before she could say anything more, I told her, "Just come." That's what we'd always done for each other. She had stayed with us before, after a car accident, during a job layoff. But this time, something in her voice felt different. Not panicked, just hollow. Her divorce had gone through. She said the house felt too big, too loud with silence. I told her ours had plenty of quiet to spare. Don didn't say much when I told him. He just nodded and muttered, "She's family." And for a while, it felt like that again. Carol cooked. She always liked feeding people. The first time, she made her famous lemon pasta. Don smiled. He said, "You should open a place." I hadn't heard that kind of warmth in his voice in a long time. The second night, she made grilled salmon with rosemary, Don's favorite. I noticed he took a second helping. My roast chicken the week before had barely been touched. At first, I didn't mind. I told myself she was trying to help, trying to belong. But one morning, I came downstairs and found Carol curled up in the armchair near the front window. That was my spot, where I did my crosswords, where I watched the birds gather on the feeder. She looked up and asked, "Want your chair?" I said no, but I didn't mean it. Little by little, I began to vanish from the spaces I used to fill. She started lighting candles. Not just any scent, lavender. Don walked past and said, "Smells like that inn we stayed at in Asheville." I nodded. I didn't remind him that I had chosen that candle years ago. That scent had been mine. The music changed too. New playlists, jazz, soft rock. One morning, I walked in and heard a song Don used to hum while brushing his teeth. It was playing from Carol's phone. Then there was the hallway closet. I was searching for an old quilt when I noticed something soft tucked behind a stack of towels. The silk robe, ivory with floral embroidery. I had given it to Carol on her 40th birthday, but I hadn't seen it in years. I picked it up, folded neatly, moved from where it used to live. I placed it back, said nothing. A few days later, I hugged Carol goodnight. Just a light embrace. Her sweater smelled like Don's aftershave. Not similar. Exact. I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling. I tried to dismiss it all, tell myself I was being sensitive, tired, overthinking. But morning came, and the coffee mug Don always used had been replaced. A new one, from Carol's set. Belief became work, and work became silence. That weekend, I left to visit my sister. Just 2 nights. When I came back, the living room had shifted. The photo of Don and me, our wedding picture, was still on the hallway shelf, but slightly off-center. I adjusted it. Next morning, it was off again. Every day, I'd move it back. And every night, something invisible moved it away. That's when I realized I was still in my house, but someone else was recentering it. I tried to keep the rhythm. I cooked breakfast, scrambled eggs the way Dawn used to like, set the table for 3. Carol came down with her earbuds in, said she was fasting. Dawn walked past me, grabbed a bar from the cabinet, kissed her hair, and left. No one sat at the table but me. I ate slowly, not out of hunger, just to feel time pass. That day, I made the chicken salad we all used to love, added grapes, toasted walnuts, poured wine, lit a candle, then waited. They never came down. I left it on the table. I didn't put it away, didn't cover it, just let it sit. By morning, the lettuce had wilted, the grapes turned dark. The vinaigrette dried into lines along the rim of the bowl. I cleaned it all without a word. Later, in the hallway closet, I noticed the silk robe again, the one I gave Carol years ago. It had moved, folded differently, edges softer. I didn't pick it up. It wasn't mine to touch anymore. One night, I passed by their laughter drifting down the stairs. I couldn't make out the words, just tones. Familiar, warm. I pressed my fingers to my ears. Too late. It had already landed. I stayed busy. Folded towels, scrubbed baseboards, rearranged the spice rack. In the guest room, Carol's room that no longer felt temporary, I found one of my old scarves, draped over the chair, a soft pink one Dawn had given me on our anniversary years ago. She had good taste. The photo on the hallway shelf showed the 3 of us at a summer picnic. Dawn, Carol, and me laughing over melting ice cream. That day, Carol had said, "The 3 of us, we're like balance. Dawn's logic, my heart, your quiet. It works." I believed her, more than I believed in Dawn some days. That night, I texted Dawn. "Dinner? Just the 2 of us? I'd like to talk." No answer, but the next morning, Carol handed me my coffee and smiled. It wasn't cruel, just too knowing. As if silence had its own language now, and she spoke it better than me. I looked in the mirror that afternoon. Still wore the pearl drop earrings Dawn had given me. Still parted my hair the way he once said made my eyes look softer. But the face looking back didn't feel like mine. I wiped the mirror once, left a streak across the center. Maybe that was closer to truth than clarity. I didn't cry, but when I opened the napkin drawer to set the table, I found one I didn't recognize. Cream cotton. A kiss of lipstick near the corner. Sunset berry. Carol's shade. I folded it slowly. Once. Twice. Tucked it back into the drawer. Didn't ask. Didn't want to know what I already knew. Some things don't leave bruises. They just rearrange you, and somehow make you smaller. I started waking up earlier. Not because I had things to do, but because the house no longer felt like it belonged to me. Mornings used to carry the soft clatter of Dawn setting 2 plates. Now, I'd come down to a spotless kitchen. He had eaten already, or skipped me. One morning, I brewed his favorite coffee, light roast, hint of cinnamon. I poured it into his favorite mug, the one with the chipped rim he always refused to replace. I placed it on the table where he used to sit, warmed a blueberry muffin the way he liked. Then I waited. He came down, checked his phone, glanced at the table, and reached for a protein shake from the fridge. He didn't even look at the mug. That's when it began. The quiet pulling away. Not just his affection, but my relevance. Carol had always had a way of filling silence, with laughter, stories, music. She was never the take your man type. Or maybe I just decided that for her. When she moved in after her divorce, she looked broken. I opened my door without thinking. She needed space. I thought I could give it. I didn't know I'd be giving everything else too. At first, it was small. They watched old crime series together. I never liked those. Dawn started jogging again, something Carol encouraged. My meals were too heavy, so they cooked quinoa and grilled things, always for health. I watched from the edge, trying to stay gracious, trying not to name what I feared. Then came the candle. I used to keep a small lavender candle by our bedside. It was Don's favorite scent. He'd said it reminded him of our honeymoon. One evening, I walked past Carol's door. It was open a crack. On her nightstand was a lavender candle. Same jar, same brand. I stepped back, breathed. It wasn't proof, just a scent. But it lingered. I began noticing how Don looked at her. Not lovingly. No, it was worse. It was easily. Like it cost him nothing to share space with her. Like she was the soft landing, and I had become sharp edges. Then, one day, I walked into the laundry room. There, folded neatly in a basket, was my silk robe. Ivory, floral stitching, long sleeves. The robe I gave Carol on her 40th birthday. I hadn't seen it in years. She had cried when she opened it, said it felt like wearing grace. I picked it up and pressed it to my face. It smelled faintly of Don's cologne, not my perfume. His. That night, I didn't say anything. I simply laid the robe on my bed. I looked at it the way you look at an old photo, trying to decide if you're still the person in it. The next morning, I noticed something else. Carol's toothbrush was in the master bathroom. It hadn't been there before. She had her own space, her own bathroom. But now, there it was, pink handle, sitting next to Don's. I didn't need more. And still, I got it. One evening, I came back early, grocery bags in hand. I walked upstairs and paused at the hallway. Their voices, low, intimate, not laughing, not even flirtatious, just comfortable. That kind of comfort that once belonged to me. I didn't knock. I walked to my room, shut the door, and sat on the edge of the bed. Then, I wrote. Not a letter of confrontation, a reminder. For myself. You did not lose a man. You lost a mirror that no longer reflected you. That evening, I lit a candle, not lavender, something new, orange blossom. I let it fill the room, and I opened a box from college. Inside, I found a note from Carol, faded, scrawled in old ink. If we ever love the same man, pick me. You'll forgive faster. I remembered laughing when I read it the first time. We were girls back then, dreamers. Now it read like prophecy or warning. I folded the note, slipped it into my pocket. The next day, I cooked dinner for 3, just like old times. I placed the plates. I poured wine. I smiled. Carol and Don came down late, whispering something. She wore a cardigan I hadn't seen before. He pulled her chair out. I watched them. I said nothing. They laughed. That was the moment. Not a robe, not a toothbrush, not a scent. It was the sound of laughter I wasn't part of. And in that laughter, I heard the closing of a door I hadn't realized was still open. That night, I packed a small suitcase, not out of anger, but clarity. I folded my clothes, my journals, the one photo I still loved, me in the garden, alone, smiling, free. I walked to Carol's room, left the silk robe on her bed. Inside, a folded note. I gave you this when you felt small. Now I'm taking back the silence it cost me. I didn't leave the house that night. I waited. The next morning, the robe was gone, but my note remained. No one spoke. I walked out the front door. The light was soft, the morning still. Dawn didn't call out. Carol didn't ask. And I didn't turn around. Because there comes a moment in every woman's life where silence becomes not absence, but decision. I didn't lose them. I released them so I could return to myself. I didn't slam a door. I didn't even close it loud enough for them to notice. That morning, the house was unusually quiet. Carol had taken Don to his dental checkup. Just like every Thursday now. I suppose shared routines replace old vows faster than we think. I walked to the linen closet and pulled out the coat, the one I hadn't worn since she moved in. It still smelled faintly of cinnamon, maybe from the kitchen drawer where she stuffed it, thinking I'd never touch it again. I laid it flat on the bed Carol slept in. No wrinkles, just stillness. I folded it, careful, corner to corner. Slipped inside a note I had written days before, on paper torn from my old recipe journal. The same one she once said was too handwritten to bother with. It read, "I gave you softness. What you did with it is yours to carry." Then I did something I hadn't planned. I opened the drawer beside Don's nightstand. My fingers hovered over the ceramic mug I once made him at the community pottery class. It had my thumbprint near the handle. I picked it up, placed it in my bag, then paused, and I put it back. Not because I wanted to leave it, but because I no longer needed proof I was here. Just peace. There was a time I thought silence meant surrender. Now I know. It's survival. In the hallway, I looked up at the wall of photos Carol had rearranged. My frame was gone, replaced by a beach snapshot of the two of them. But the key, my key, to the chest where I kept the family albums, was still taped under the hallway light switch. She never thought to check. I took it. I didn't flip a light, didn't leave a note for Don. He'd notice only when he'd look for the blue apron I always wore when making his soup. It'd be gone, too. I walked out just as a breeze crept in through the screen door. For a moment, I stood there, letting it wash over me, and I whispered to no one. I watered weeds, thinking they were flowers. Today, I stopped gardening. Then I left. And for once, I didn't look back to see if anyone noticed. It took weeks before I even noticed the roses. I had planted them years ago, back when the house still echoed with Carol's laughter and Don's shoes lined the hallway. Now, it was just me and the dirt. I didn't speak much those days. The silence felt safer. But every morning, I stepped outside barefoot and pressed my hands into the soil. I didn't know what I was looking for. Maybe something to hold on to. Maybe something that would hold me back. The garden didn't bloom right away. At first, the ground was stubborn, dry, as if it too had been drained. But I stayed with it. I pulled weeds, turned compost, watered, waited, a kind of quiet labor that asked nothing and offered no guarantee. And one morning, the first rose opened, soft pink, a little uneven, like a smile after too long. I didn't cry. I just stood there, fingers dirty, heart full. Not because the rose forgave anyone, not because it fixed anything, but because it reminded me something could still bloom in a place that had been emptied. Behind me, a breeze stirred the old rose bush near the fence. One petal lifted free, light as breath. It floated down, brushed my shoulder, and settled in the curve of my collarbone. I didn't brush it off. I let it rest there, like a nod from the world. A whisper. You didn't disappear. Later that evening, I brewed a cup of chamomile and sat on the porch. The light was fading, softening everything it touched. I watched the wind ripple through the garden. The petals shimmered, then stilled. There was no carol, no dawn, no past walking up the driveway to explain or apologize, and I didn't need them to. What I had now wasn't loud or certain. It wasn't revenge or victory. It was a small peace, earned by staying, by not turning cruel, by choosing my hands, the soil, the breath that still rose and fell in me. I looked down at that petal, now caught in the fold of my sleeve. Maybe I hadn't lost myself. Maybe I had only gone quiet, waited for the noise to pass. Maybe I didn't need to grow back. Maybe I was here all along. I don't sleep with the blanket anymore, but I haven't thrown it away. Some nights, I fold it carefully, not to remember her warmth, but to remember mine, the part of me she didn't take. You don't need to understand why they did it. You just need to remember who you were before. And if someone ever walked out using the key you gave them, you're not foolish. You were kind. If you've been holding your story quiet, maybe this is where you let it breathe. Write to me. The email's down below, sweetheart. Or stay. Just sit with me a while, until your hurt softens too, like an old blanket, folded, but not forgotten.